his bread and butter. He was saying, or Vortex was saying in the pre-match interview, they wanted to get Majestic against him just so it would be a PvT. And then on top of that, Slivko is just like a really good player, and ZVZ has some element of weirdness to it. Anyone can beat anyone. So Vortex has a lot to do to get through this lineup, even if he is the better player than all of them. And I think there's a pretty good argument you can make that he's not. So it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I certainly agree. Now, for those of you who don't know, actually, we are looking at the group stage dual tournament format, and then the playoffs will be single elimination. So that's how things are going to work. The bracket didn't exactly reflect that, so that was a little confusing. But yeah, we will be playing the dual tournament, which is the GSL format, meaning that it is effectively double elimination in the round of 8, and then in the playoffs it will be single elimination. Alright, we are looking at Vortex coming out, actually, for Spain, so they're not going to wait around on this one.
That's kind of interesting. I'm not sure what the reasoning for that is. I figured they would try and cheese out anyone they possibly could before putting in Vortex. And then just keep him as the backstop. I guess, I don't know. Maybe Majestic feels really, really uncomfortable in PvP, and they kind of want to hope that Happy's going to be Russia's anchor, and then if it ends up at Happy versus Majestic, then Majestic can maybe take that.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily throw Slivko into a ZVZ with Vortex. That doesn't necessarily sound like the best idea. So you might end up seeing Happy. Greg, sorry, we're just waiting on you here, actually, in the lobby.
I don't have an invite.
Yeah, apparently, I guess the invite must have gone out. I will let the admin know.
Okay.
And then we'll get you into this game. So yeah, I guess Vortex is really the best pick at this point, because probably the best bet you've got of taking out the Protoss player there. Then maybe you can force out their Zerg. Well, I guess actually they already killed their Zerg. Never mind. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I really think it's just that they want to hold Majestic and wait for Happy. I think he's kind of only intended for that. Just judging by the interview, judging by the state of PvT. And then this pick here. So they're hoping Vortex takes out Titan and Slivko, and preferably Happy. But if Happy happens to beat Vortex,
then they throw Majestic at
does something funky PvT.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I guess that's the rationale here.
That certainly seems to be a good rationale as far as I'm concerned. We'll be going into the next game on Derelict Watcher very shortly between these two folks. And currently, we have the Russian team leading 1-0 up against Spain. And here we go. Or not. Ah, there we go. Okay. Fantastic. Last thing we want now is a little bit of lag. So, to the northeast position, ladies and gentlemen, the blue trunks for Team Spain. It is Mouse Sports Vortex. Versus his opponent to the southwest position, currently up 1 game in this best-of-5 series for his country, Russia. In the red trunks playing Protoss, it is Roxkus Titan.
It's going to be on Derelict Watch. If Titan wants to continue to go for the very Void Ray heavy style, which has become extremely popular PvZ recently, this is another pretty good map for it. Really long map, pretty easy to secure 3rd, really hard to take 4th. So that's a lot of factors that go in favor of that. I haven't seen Titan play PvZ in actually a very long time. Back in Wings of Liberty, he was very heavy on 2-base Immortals. So I'm not sure what his go-to style is, but that 3-star Void Ray is becoming exceedingly popular just amongst everyone, and seeing him use it the first game, he may just be going for that every time. And we can see how Vortex is going to try and counter that. Vortex has always been one of those players where he's really, really good in a straight-up game, very good at a macro game. He can beat anyone at that, but he also likes to do really weird, funky stuff. Like, I actually thought it was him for a second when we saw the aggressive hatchery and that potential gold base, because that seems exactly like something he would do. Maybe he even told Alistair about this strategy, gave him the idea for it. So we could see something funky from him, but he is just going for a 15 pull thus far.
Well, Titan's going Nexus first, which honestly seems reasonable considering he's going up against a 15 pull. If it was anything earlier than that, he might have been in trouble, but I think he should be fine.
And he's actually gone Nexus first and then a Gateway, which is the greediest build Protoss can do. Obviously, for going the Forge, you don't get a cannon down immediately. If there is some kind of rush, especially if there's like a speedling rush or anything, you kind of just die. But the upshot of this is that he's going to, if he wants, have an exceedingly fast, very powerful 6 to 8 warp gate rush, if he wants to go for something like that. And he's actually putting down a single gas. Now he is going to go for a double gas early on, so it's not going to be like some silly, silly fast rush. But this does give you access to both basically the economy of a Nexus First expansion, plus almost the warp gate timing of a gateway expansion. And Vortex is playing very, very safe with that pool first, and he's not scouting this, which means he's not going to have a great economic opening. He's not going to know what's coming at him. If he just takes a third hatchery without taking his gas, as he is, he's not going to have speed lane. So if Titan actually does choose to turn this into a very quick rush, it's going to be really, really hard for Vortex to hold it just based off on off of his build order.
It's really
we saw things like this happen. Actually, I think with Scarlet versus Hitman on this very map. Hitman kind of got a free win because this exact same scenario played out.
Yeah, it's a bit awkward for the Zerg player because the Zerg player wants to be a base ahead whenever possible, but with the Nexus first going down and then the Zerg player only scouting it very late, then going into the third, it's a bit of a dice roll because, as you said, if Titan decides to suddenly build a bunch of gateways and then go once Warp Gate is done, the likelihood of Vortex actually having enough units out to hold that is questionable. He ends up then losing his third in that scenario.
Yeah, and it's very, very hard to find any kind of reaction because by the time you scout it, it's not common to drone scout. It's just not really worth it early on most of the time. But by the time your Overlord actually sees what's happened, it's far too late to really respond, especially in this case, as Vortex didn't open up Speedling anyway. I don't know, opening up pool first just leaves you very vulnerable to this. However, Titan is dropping the Forge. He's not chrono boosting out Warp Gate. He hasn't added anything additional yet. He's building up a good amount of gas. So he may not be going for that kind of Warp Gate all in at all. He may just be opting for the better economy, along with a quick gateway to kind of scare Vortex. But Vortex is not scared. He has not put down... he's putting down gases at the normal timing here. He's not rushing them out. He's not headed straight for Speedling or Roaches or anything to try and keep himself safe. So this could play out pretty okay for him.
Yeah, very, very generous of Titan to give Vortex the shot there. A couple more gateways going down, of course, just to try and complete the wall off, make sure that run-bys are nowhere near as effective as they otherwise would be. Starting with a +1, so Titan playing just a little bit more traditionally here, and certainly not aggressive. He probably won't try and poke out until +1 is done at least.
+1, putting down the third and fourth gases. He's actually sending out a probe. It looks like he might be going for a really, really early third nexus. And this is something that may look kind of risky. It seems like he shouldn't possibly be able to take a third base at this point. There's actually not much Vortex can do to really stop it. Even Vortex is putting down a very early Roachhorn, pretty early Roachhorn, mainly just because he's been in the dark. Scouting was denied very well by Titan, so he doesn't know if some kind of all-in could be coming. Oh, I don't know. Did that Zergling actually see? The Zergling didn't actually see the expansion.
No, it didn't.
See the pylon or the Nexus
Really
or anything. So Vortex is not yet sure that third base is actually going down. And if you don't know that third base is going down, it's very, very hard to actually do anything to it because you really have to commit to kill that third base.
Yeah.
Even if you do it, sometimes isn't worth it. So he has a bunch of Zerglings coming, but that's not going to do anything.
No.
Here.
No, I don't think so. And really, you want to try and kill it before it completes, because if you don't do that, then the Mothership Nexus Cannon becomes a factor, and that means that committing units to actually kill it is much more costly. Potentially, you can lose your entire army, not kill the third base, and then you might as well just give up at that point, because the Protoss then rolls over you. So that can be a real problem here, and Vortex's lack of scouting certainly hasn't helped him up to this point. Now the Lings move in, and they're not going to be able to get anything done here whatsoever. The Nexus is almost done. This puts the Protoss player in a really nice position, so where do you go from here if you're Vortex?
It's really, really tough. He's been completely in the dark. He put down a bunch of, well, 3 Spore Crawlers, and when the fake Oracle flew in his base, he actually thought it was real. He pulled his drones off the mineral line for a second out of fear. And it's 3 Nexus versus 3 Hatchery, a big upgrade advantage already for Titan, and he dropped his second Forge, so he's just going to maintain that. The Robo is already completed. It looks like Aspire is going to be the go-to from Vortex. He is going to try and get up to Mutas. He's getting Roche as well, but that's more defensive. He's not going to be able to do any kind of timing attack here. Titan's build is just far too good, and he has a lot of mana already built up on those on those sentries. So I don't know. He's going to have to hope that he gets a big Muta flat going and just snowballs off that, because right now it's really, really tough. They're almost equal supply. Titan, actually, if anything, might have the economic advantage. He's already getting up to 6 gas. Definitely a tech and upgrade advantage for Titan.
Yeah, certainly.
Vortex, no 4th hatchery, no 4th base coming. It's just it's a tough opening. Titan played a little bit on the greedy side, and Vortex played extremely, extremely safe, and that just clearly doesn't line up well for the safe player.
Evidently not, yeah. This Spire could be the saving grace. If there's anything the Titan isn't really doing right now, it's preparing for a Spire play. He doesn't have a Stargate down. He is bringing out some Stalkers, but He doesn't have his Twilight done yet, so he hasn't researched Blink, and even then, as we're well aware, Stalkers are not really the ideal answer to Mutalisks. You preferably want Phoenix in that situation, but my concern is that if Titan just pushes out right now and starts to really hammer this one home, especially with the Immortal in the mix and upgrades on the way, then things could go really well. I'm kind of surprised to see that Time Warp go down the middle of nowhere there, and the force fields were a little bit questionable, so I guess it just seems like Titan wants to secure his half of the map, and is not necessarily interested in attacking yet.
Yeah, he certainly hasn't committed to it by any means. He has 7 gateways, I think, and if you want to do this quick third base into an attack, you make like 10 gateways. Because you have a lot of money to work with this kind of build. He's just kind of scaring Vortex a little, making him think he might be doing that kind of quick warp gate attack. But back at home, he's producing Immortals, as you said. He has that Twilight Council with Blink coming out. And he's actually gone for 1-1. He's upgrading shields consistently.
Yeah.
He got the first shield upgrade just because his Twilight Council didn't quite line up with his Forge timing. But he's actually getting +2 shield right now.
Huh.
In theory, that might be okay against Mutas because it helps the buildings. I don't know how much of a difference it actually makes in practical terms because no one ever does that.
Generally, so, no. I mean, unless you're going like heavy Archon that can really benefit from that, it is very unusual to actually see a shield upgrade going down there.
Very, very unusual. And Titan seems somewhat aware that Mutas might be happening. He has Stalkers in his main. No cannons up anywhere yet. His third base is completely exposed. He does have Blink on the way. And it's actually just going to be a frontal assault from Vortex, and this is a terrible idea.
Yeah, I mean, this seems pretty suicidal, especially with the upgrade advantage the Titan happens to be sitting on here. Vortex just going right in, and it ends predictably. I mean...
What the hell was that?
Not what I'd call amazing. Vortex, of course, still has a supply advantage, but that's just because he's constantly pumping out units. But that was one of the most inefficient engagements I've seen in a very long time. And Vortex's split off of Mutalisks to try and do damage in the main didn't really work. If he'd maybe shut down the Twilight Council, that might have been worth it, but as it stands, he loses yet more Mutalisks. And with +2 shields on the way, what you're seeing here is actually a ridiculously heavy Stalker force and Immortals. And shields do benefit that. I mean, you're looking at equal HP for both shields and for the actual armor value. Vortex going in again, kills a few Stalkers and Zealots, but the Immortals just smash the Roaches up for a second time, and now the upgrades are about to kick in for the Protoss player. This is a funky game.
It's going to get pretty silly from here. I don't know what Vortex was thinking. Mutas, when a small number of Mutas might be the least cost-efficient fighting force in the entire game. Like, low numbers of Mutas are solely designed for harassment and map control and whatnot. They do not fight head-on very well at all for their cost. And so to charge into a Protoss who has that kind of composition, that kind of upgrade advantage, that kind of economic advantage, that was just absolutely suicidal. And the bases were very open to harass. There were no cannons anywhere. There was only a handful of Stalkers in the main. Titan actually leaving his third base still very exposed. Vortex can definitely take advantage of that. He can just keep picking at that. But I don't know what he ever does about this army, because Titan just has so many Stalkers. He's so well upgraded. And a bunch of mutes.
Oh god, that was horrible to watch. Vortex just gets blinked on, and he's got +3 shields. I mean, that's an icon I rarely ever see. But you know what, with this composition against what Vortex is able to field, this is actually perfect. Because if you think about it, well, he's hardly going to throw Roaches against that many Stalkers and Immortals, so it's like, oh, I'll get some Lings out. Oh, well, that won't work, because he's got +2 armor on the shields and +2 armor on the armor. You can't really throw Mutalisks at that unupgraded either, because they die too fast. Massive Ling run by, actually. Surprised Titan allowed that in. And suddenly the Natural is going to get absolutely wrecked here, but I have a feeling that Titan just wants to end the game.
Yeah, I don't know. It was pretty clear that Vortex was going to be forced to go for a base race here. There was no way he was ever going to touch that army. As you said, with upgrades in both the armor and the shields, there's no way those units ever die to Mutaling. So I'm surprised Titan wasn't more prepared for that. He's been playing a little bit sloppy. He has no cannons at all against Muta harass. He's either a little bit sloppy, or his plan was always just get a bunch of units and go kill him when he tries to kill you. But base racing against Mutas is always pretty dangerous, even if you are quite ahead.
It's a lot of mobility, and there's a lot of Lings and Roaches in that base as well. I'm actually kind of surprised that Titan went for the full-on base race. He could have at least stopped the run-by in the Natural, even with just leaving a single sentry behind. No cannons, as you said. The firepower in the Protoss army is massive, but I'm a little concerned perhaps about what happens if the mobility of the Mutalisks allows him to get around here. So I guess we're going to see what's going on. The Lings are trying to go after the probes, and they're going to eventually be able to kill them. However, the +2 shields are actually keeping them alive. So I guess the genius here is very much Titan. But the 24 Mutalisks against 50 +2/+2/+1 Stalkers, and +3 ground weapon coming in. This is really, really strange. It's not the kind of situation you usually see, but Titan has enough firepower to very easily destroy all of these bases here. I think Vortex is probably horribly dead, but it's hard to say because everything for Titan is gone now. The probes are with the army. Titan has a bit of money to rebuild, though. He can actually build 2 Nexus with the amount of money he's got. The Lings and the Mutas come in, actually, and they manage to catch most of those Stalkers off guard, and Vortex is going to be able to get a preferential trade here. So Titan ends up losing 11 Stalkers in that fight, and Vortex keeps almost all of his Mutalisks alive.
Yeah, if that happens maybe 2 or 3 more times, maybe Vortex has a chance.
Yeah.
But Titan has to mess up pretty bad. He has his own Nexus coming up. Vortex is down to 2 naked hatcheries. It doesn't have really anything to back it up besides that Muta count. I don't know. If Vortex wants any chance at all here, it's purely going to be through like elimination race.
Yeah.
Like Titan gets impatient and tries to go for a hatchery across the map with half his army, loses that kind of thing. But that does happen. Protosses make that kind of judgment call and make it wrong very, very frequently. That's why this muted style into base race is so popular in ZBP.
Yeah. +3 cancelled there. It was never running in to begin with because the pylon power was down. Vortex is going to clean up the remaining Protoss buildings with his Roaches, Lings, and Mutas across the map. But that does not answer the quandary of this Nexus here that is being guarded by 37 Stalkers, 2 Immortals, and a bunch of +2 shields probes, which are far more dangerous than you might expect. And he's going to be able to mine here as well, so you just throw down a bunch of cannons and say, come at me, and then we sit here for the next 20 minutes being horribly bored.
Yeah, that's the big thing, because Vortex now, Titan doesn't actually know this for sure, but Vortex actually doesn't have a mining base now. His one remaining hatchery is nowhere near a mineral line, and he does not have the money to actually rebuild a hatchery.
Yep.
So what he has is what he has for a really, really, really long time, and Titan does have a mining base, so he's just going to be getting stronger and stronger, and his army already beats... You know, his army isn't quite as scary, but with the upgrades, his army already beats Vortex.
It does.
Head on. So if Titan just sits on this Nexus and defends it, he can't possibly lose. But the thing is, he doesn't know that Vortex doesn't have a mining base. So maybe he gets impatient, maybe he gets scared, and he tries to attack and exposes himself to that.
Possibly.
That's the one way Vortex can still win.
The drones are on the way. Vortex is going to engage in some long-distance mining of what's left of the main, which is not too much. Vortex is also looking to try and engage here, which is very, very risky. There's nowhere that the Mutalisk can actually run to if he gets trapped here. So I'm a little bit worried about him engaging here. He's looking to try and go to the minimal line, instantly gets blinked on, and actually, what on earth he is... I think he's actually just giving this up at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's doomed now. He engages directly against this, which is absolutely not going to work. There's twice as many Stalkers with upgrades as there are Mutalisks, and that's the GG. And this is looking very likely to be an all-kill right here for Russia. This is... Oh, I mean, it's ugly. I mean, Vortex was their best chance of breaking Titan, and, well, now it comes down to Majestic in a PvP, then up against Happy, and then up against Slivko in any order that Russia chooses.
Yeah, that means they get to pick their maps, and for multiple different matchups, for actually all of the matchups, and I don't know, that's just going to be terrible. That was really surprisingly bad from Vortex. I don't know what he was thinking with that frontal attack, because... He's a very, very smart player. And there were no Phoenix anywhere out or anywhere on the way from Titan, so he was guaranteed to be able to force that base race situation. If he just like keeps his mutas alive, goes for harassment, gets those 4th and 5th bases up, then he does the same thing except without wasting a bunch of units in the first place. He definitely has a very good shot to win that game, even with the unfavorable openings. I have no idea why he went for that frontal attack. It was just suicidal. Yeah,
I'm not 100% sure. I don't really have too much of an explanation for that one. It seemed a tad suicidal. I don't have any logic. I would love to say, hey, maybe, you know, there was just a misunderstanding there and he thought this and that, but I think almost in any situation, if you engage like that, you're going to take a huge amount of losses. So I don't really know why he did that, but
If you're very, very ahead early on, you can do it. Dongregu's ZVP basically just used to be entirely he macroed better than everyone, so he would
yeah.
just do that, except he would have plus 50 supply, literally plus 50 supply when that attack happened, whereas I'm not sure, but it feels like Vortex was maybe plus 20, plus 30 without a lot of lings, so the roaches were just wasted supply against the Immortals and the Stalkers. So, I mean, it can happen, but it never ever should. It's purely if you have an advantage, and if anything, Titan had the advantage from the early game. He had the much better. He got away with being much greedier early on than Vortex did, so that was just not good. And now we get to see Majestic. I have never ever seen Majestic play. I had never heard of him before today, so
Yeah, I have no
be
information on him, honestly. So I don't know what exactly he's going to be able to do here. What I can say is that he's up against the wall. And not only does he have to do a PvP, which is difficult enough in and of itself, but then he has to run up against two incredible players like Slivko and Happy, which is brutal. I have a feeling that Spain may very well be losing their first match in this dual tournament format, so it's unfortunate, but they really needed Vortex to carry there, and knocking out Titan earlier would have been helpful, but without allowing that to happen, Spain's in a lot of trouble here.
it certainly is. I kind of hope Majestic somehow manages to beat Titan just because I want to see Slivko again. Slivko, we haven't heard anything about him for the last year, but I remember the first time I saw him play at a Home Story Cup, I actually liked him quite a bit. He was like a really friendly, nice guy, and he was actually a very good player.
Yeah, he actually was. He had a couple of high finishes, didn't he? So he did pretty well there.
For a couple of lands in a row.
Yeah.
And I don't know, then he just kind of disappeared. I'm not sure if he still plays actively, if he's just been hiding out in Europe. I don't know if he's even in WCS or anything. So I hope we get to see him play at least once or twice today. I'm sure in Russia versus Poland, we'll get to see everyone.
I think so. Russia versus Poland sounds like one of the more balanced matchups of the day, I feel. That could actually go either way. Especially since we have Demaga back in form by the looks of it. He actually won an event yesterday.
Oh, which event?
He won against, I believe it was Baby Knight in the finals, and I'm just double-checking what the name of the cup was. It had some very strange name. Let me just double-check that one. But he did pick it up, I think, in a fairly close 4-3 series. It was the Esports Venture Cup he was able to win there.
Demaga's the kind of player you can never, ever count out. Like, he's been around since the very first day of the beta, and he's been a tournament contender the entire time. And sometimes he'll just have terrible performances, like something won't be right, or he'll make some funny decisions, or he'll just be off for the day, and he'll look terrible. And then other days he randomly shows up and he's world-class. And it's been like that the entire time that he's been playing StarCraft 2.
What actually surprised me is that his run through this cup was quite the thing. He actually beat Hero Marine, who's had a lot of hype behind him lately. He 2-0'd Baby Knight in his group. He went through his group 4-1, which was very impressive. And then he 3-2's Daishi, 3-1's Targa, and then 4-3's Baby Knight, which is not a bad run.
No, not at all. There's some strong players in there.
That is very, very true. So, well, the clan tag for Giants is GG, which might be quite appropriate here for Spain, because Titan is looking unstoppable at the moment. With Vortex out of the picture, it comes down to Majestic's PvP skill, and then his everything else skill.
He does have to play every matchup to win here, so if he manages to somehow pull this out, that's going to be incredibly impressive. Especially because the PvZs and PvTs will both, I believe, is it loser choice map? It usually is in this kind of situation.
I believe so, as far as I'm aware.
He will probably have to play PvZ and PvT on his opponent's map choices. So, yeah. He has a very, very long road ahead of him.
Yeah, you're not kidding on that one. Jeez, that is a ridiculously tough time. We'll see. No, it's a possibility he wins the PvP, but it would be his ultimate breakout performance, I think, if he was able to beat the other two. Because they're no slouches.
If anything, I would give him the best odds in the PvP, just because lots of funny stuff can happen in PvP.
Yeah.
There's always a good chance to get lucky, and there's no pretending. He's clearly the inferior player in all three of these matchups. But they didn't even want to put him out for the PvP. I think if he liked PvP, if they liked him in PvP, they would have put him out against Titan before having to risk Vortex against him.
Yeah.
So the fact that they held him for last, I don't think he's super confident in PvP.
It's not a great vote of confidence from the team captain, is it? I mean, that's...
No.
if you put someone out last like that against the first player, I don't know, it's looking a bit grim for Spain, let's just put it that way. So we'll see how they can do in this, but this is looking very, very likely that it's going to be a complete shutout here from the Russian team. I guess we are about to find out momentarily as we go into this game right here. Russia versus Spain here on Frost. The last man standing for the Spanish team in the Blue Trunks playing Protoss to this southwest position. It is Giants Majestic versus his opponent to the full-on cross position of Frost, so this could go on for a little while, but it is a PvP, so maybe not. To the northeast position in the Red Trunks playing for Team Russia, who is on the verge of an all-kill. It is Roxkiss Titan.
Well, if it is loser pick, the Majestic has gone into this choosing Frost, which is the one big 4-player map in the pool. So maybe... Because obviously on a big 4-player map, it's very hard to scout your opponent. There's long scouting distances. There's 4 different positions, so you don't know where they are immediately. Maybe he's going to try and do something weird and cheesy, hope it doesn't get scouted. I don't know. I'm just not sure what he can actually do to make... It's just such an intimidating feat to have to go up against these 3 players in a row as a pretty much complete unknown. But he's actually going out and scouting immediately, so he wants to get a look at his opponent, whereas Titan just playing very conservatively, gateway on 11, then just stay in his base, not bothering to scout, which is pretty common on a 4-player map. A lot of players don't even want to make the investment, given that you're not going to find your opponent early on 2/3 of the time. And quick double gas from Majestic, still sticking on the single gas for Titan.
I have no idea how this is going to go, honestly. I've never seen Majestic play, much less a PvP. Titan's been looking really, really good, but of course... Again, it's a PvP matchup. It can be a bit coin flippy at the best of times, and it depends, I suppose, what both of these guys decide to do in terms of builds. That double gas with the 2 workers for Majestic versus the 1 gas for Titan with the 3 workers. Not a huge difference between the two, although it does mean Titan's got his Cyber Core up slightly earlier.
Sticking on the 1 gas, I'm not sure if that actually means he has to be going for a 4-gate or not. I am very, very underexperienced.
If it was Wings of Liberty, it would absolutely be a 4-gate from this position on 1 gas with 3 probes in it. But
yeah, he is kind of boosting it out immediately and sticking on 1 gas. That has to be some kind of gateway rush, but Majestic actually scouts it right away. And on a big 4-player map like this, things like this tend to be very much so, you're not going to scout me, so I'm going to do this cheese that isn't really a high percentage kind of thing. Like, it does not seem like this is supposed to work on here. It's a very long rush distance. The Stalkers and Zealous won't get there very quickly to defend his forward pylon. And it's a very tight, small, defensible ramp. So he's going to be able to deal with that quite easily. Majestic scouting this, I think, is a very, very big deal. And we do see the 3 gateways coming down, so it's definitely going to be a 4-gate from Titan. I don't know. This is weird. I don't know why he's bothering to do this. Maybe he's just like, oh, I already took out 2 players. I'm just going to cheese.
Just going to do it. Yeah.
You guys take care of it.
Pretty much. I mean, there's a possibility of that. Titan took a huge risk as well, sending his probe into the main, considering that was the only probe out on the map, and this is, as you said, a gigantic map. So if he'd actually lost that probe, that would have delayed the rush significantly and made it a hell of a lot less effective. We've got Majestic building 2 Stalkers at a time, which is absolutely a solid response to this initially, if he can do the damage. And he's even got his Mothership Core out as well, so Titan now going for the very aggressive pylon. We could just see it end right here, one way or the other. Majestic already has the edge, and without a warp in, Titan's already almost lost that Zealot in the process. That looks like that pylon is going to finish, though. We are going to see a warp in coming in from the Russian player, surely, or not? There it is, okay.
He's just waiting on the gateways. Majestic has the edge for a second, but the whole point of going the 2 gateways and the Stalkers is to get map control, prevent the pylons from going down. Because right now he's running on 2 gateways against 4 gateways, and he actually isn't going to use the Nexus cannon. He lost the Mothership Core too quickly, and he's just down 2 gateways of production now, plus down his Stalker count. Majestic kind of just didn't.
He's fallen to pieces. He gets a nice probe surround and kills a good number of Stalkers, but the 4-gate continues against the 2-gate here, and you absolutely called it in terms of that. The 2 Stalkers at once kind of production is to stop the pylons from going down in the first place. And that just didn't happen. And that was a very, very short 3-0 there. Russia stomps all over Spain.
That was kind of depressing. Majestic was in... That's like the best possible scenario. He scouted a cheese that's very, very much so kind of a silly all-in for the map, for the situation and everything. He had every opportunity to defend it. He either chrono boosts to stalkers out. He gets, I don't know. That was just not a good choice because it's such a big map. It's such an open map. There's so many places the pylon could be. The chances of you actually denying the pylons and the probes completely is pretty low. If he just gets sentries out, just plays defensively, just holds on, then he has a very big advantage going forward. And you can just work off of that. Oh no, that was an odd choice by him. Really kind of bad.
Yeah,